and then I will let folks in. Okay, the live just started and I'll let folks in. Starting now.
Everyone, welcome. We're going to wait for folks to take some time to be able to join, and then we'll get started. So give us another minute or two. Thank you for being patient. Love seeing all the thumbs up. We'll get started here in a few minutes. I'm still going to give it another minute to allow folks to join. We were expecting a high number today, and I'm not quite seeing that, but we'll get started. We won't delay too much further. Just want to make sure folks have some time to get on. I'm seeing that number slow down some, so I think we can get started. Hi, everyone. My name is Susie Crow, and I am with the Department of Developmental Services. I oversee the implementation of the Quality Incentive Program that we are here to talk about today. I'm going to pass this to Jasmine to do some housekeeping and get our translators going.
Thank you, Susie. I'll advance to the next slide for housekeeping. Hi, everyone. I'm Jasmine with the Community Engagement Team at DDS. And a few announcements before we start. We are offering Spanish interpretation today, and I'm going to give instructions in Spanish on how to access the Spanish channel. Para escuchar esta reunión en español, haga clic en el globo blanco en la parte inferior de la pantalla con la etiqueta Interpretation. Luego haga clic en Spanish y seleccione Mute Original Audio. We're also offering ASL interpretation for today's meeting. The interpreters have been spotlighted, so their video will always be displayed on the screen for everyone. Closed captioning is also active. This meeting is being recorded, and materials are available on the agency's website. And just a reminder that your controls for your for today's meeting are available in the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. To provide questions or comments, please use the Q&A function in your Zoom toolbar. That chat feature will not be available during this webinar. If attendance is high, it's possible you may be directed to our YouTube live stream. Thank you, and back to you, Susie.
Thank you, Jasmine. I'm going to ask that our other presenters and folks from the team introduce themselves as well, starting with Aaron.
Good morning, everyone. Aaron Christian. I'm the Chief of our Community Risk, Quality Assurance, and Data Operations. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Aaron. Amanda?
Hi, everybody. My name is Amanda. I am with the Office of Quality Assurance, and I have been involved in the development of the survey that we will be sharing with you today.
Shirley?
Good morning. My name is Shirley Chan. I'm a manager in the Office of Quality Assurance as well.
And we also have Josh with us, but we have some tech issues. And so just know he's our fearless manager here and with us as well. I want to acknowledge that this is a rescheduled webinar from Monday of this week when we were impacted by the AWS shortage. We apologize for this inconvenience, and we are so glad so many of you could be still with us here today, even though we had to reschedule on you. Thank you for joining as we walk through the Quality Incentive Program employment measure and data collection process for this next fiscal year, beginning July 1, 2026. Let's see. I think we can, oh, sorry, we're on the right screen. I apologize. Today we're going to review what the Quality Incentive Program is, what this specific employment measure is all about. We're going to do a live walkthrough of the survey and then hold time, as Jasmine mentioned, to do live question and answer. We'll go through some resources and supports available to you all as well. Next slide. We have here linked the QIP webpage, which I'm going to ask, we might be putting things into the chat for you. Shirley, I might tap you to do that today if you can. If not, we'll do that throughout the rest of the presentation. This training, as Jasmine mentioned, is being recorded, and we will post it to our QIP webpage. We ask that you please save your questions for the end, as we hope to answer a lot of them throughout our time together today. We will take all questions, and if they're not already reflected in our FAQs, we're going to make sure that they get added. You can always use this email address that you see on the screen as well to get in touch with the department. Next slide. Okay, so what is the Quality Incentive Program? You're going to hear us refer to the Quality Incentive Program throughout this training as QIP. The QIP is a part of a change in the way service providers get paid for providing services. Regional center service providers are paid a baseline rate for services, and to get their full rate, providers have an opportunity to earn an additional 10% for completing certain quality measures set by the department. And the department is committed to working with all eligible providers in order to get that full QIP rate. The employment measure we're going to be walking through today is one of 3 measures for eligible providers to earn their full rate, which includes that 10% QIP rate. This is for service providers who provided services in fiscal year 2024-2025. And that's between the dates of July 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2025 of this year. I'll note here that if you were vendored after June 30th of this year, 2025, then you will not need to fill out this employment survey. You will hear from us about a different survey that we would like you to complete as a new provider. So all eligible providers will be required to complete a survey about provider capacity. This is about your direct service workforce. And we had a training for that on Wednesday, which we did record, and we will hopefully very soon have that up on the website. If you provide employment services, you will also be required to complete this employment measure survey, where we're collecting information about staff training and individual employment outcomes. In addition, residential service providers will be required to do a second survey as well, collecting information on the preventative health screenings of individuals served. That training is going to be held on Wednesday of next week, October 29th. So we're going to link all of these training opportunities for you into the chat. I want to emphasize here that the current goal for each of these measures and the associated surveys is to collect complete and accurate data within each category. We want to establish some baseline data for these measures, and we want every eligible provider to complete this data collection so that they can earn their full QIP rate. With that in mind, we're hoping to take some of the guesswork out for you all. If you are an employment provider and you're responsible for completing 2 surveys, which would be this employment one we're going to review today, as well as the provider capacity survey, you're going to get 2 emails in November when we begin sending these links to everyone. And it's going to be 1 email for each survey. If you only need to take the provider capacity survey, you are only going to get a link to that survey. So links will be sent directly to your inbox, and that's to the email that is listed and validated in the provider directory. So if you have updates to your organization and to that email, please go in and make sure you have that corrected. Next slide. Okay, so we're here today, again, to talk specifically about the employment measure. And again, in order to earn your full QIP rate beginning July 1st, 2026, and continuing through June 30th of 2027, this encompasses 1 full fiscal year, which is fiscal year 26-27. Service providers providing group supported employment, that's service code 950, as well as individual supported employment, which is service code 952, will be required to complete this survey in order to earn their full rate, again, beginning July 1st, 2026. Next slide. This employment survey asks providers to report on job development staff who have completed specific training certifications, as well as the individuals who newly started in a paid job, and also those who have any known history of holding competitive integrated employment positions. One very important note as you all are seeing this list of what will be reported through this survey, and you're thinking, oh no, I don't have staff who have gone through that training. I want to make sure you know that earning your QIP rate related to this measure is not contingent on how many staff were trained or how many individuals attained employment. But it is required that you complete the survey in its entirety with the information that you do have. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to pass this training over to my colleague, Amanda, who is going to walk you through the actual survey platform and questions.
Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm just in the process of making sure that my screen is shared. Does everybody see the email screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to walk you through starting from the very first step, which is receiving this link in your inbox. You will receive a link at the email address that you registered and validated with the provider directory, and you will receive it from dds-oqa@qualtricssurvey.com. Once you receive this email, the first thing we want you to do is scroll down and confirm that the vendor ID in the email is correct. This is the vendor ID that you will be responding to the questions about. And I just want to say this is a dummy vendor ID. If it matches anybody, I apologize. Okay, so once you've confirmed that your vendor ID is correct, you can access the survey by either clicking on the hyperlink that says take the survey, or if that doesn't work for you, you can copy and paste this highlighted URL. So I'm just going to go ahead and click take the survey, and this will automatically pull up the survey for you to take. So once you click on that link, this screen should open up for you. This first page is just the introduction, and it presents you with some information about the survey, including eligibility. Anybody who provided employment services under service codes 950 and 952 will be, during FY 24-25, will be eligible to participate in this survey. And completing it will give you access to 5% of your quality incentive rate. The other 5% can be earned by completing the provider capacity survey. The deadline to complete the survey is January 31st, 2026. The survey, as Susie mentioned, asks about staff training and employment outcomes for individuals served during 24-25. So once you've read through this introduction, you can click the next button. You can click the next button, which will take you to the data confidentiality statement. This statement gives you an overview on how we collect, store, and manage your data, and the measures we take to make sure your privacy is protected. If you want more details, you can follow this link, and it outlines, item by item, the steps that we take and what we will do with your data and what we won't do with your data. Once you've read through and you feel comfortable, you can click I consent, and that will take you to the body of the survey. Before proceeding, again, we ask that you confirm that your vendor ID is correct. So the first question that you will see is on staff training. This is the first section of the survey. This will ask how many employment specialists or staff who directly support individuals with gaining employment were on payroll between July 2024 and June 30th, 2025. This question is specifically referring to individuals whose job it was to develop job opportunities. So this is not where we would enter information regarding job coaching. For the purposes of this demonstration, we'll just go with one, so we don't have to enter a bunch of information. Once you click the next button, you will see the same number of text entry boxes as you reported to have staff. So if you said you have 5 members of staff who provided developed job opportunities, you'll see 5 text entry boxes. This is where you will enter the first and last name of your staff members. Once you have entered your data, confirmed it is correct, you can go ahead and click the next button. On this page, you will be asked to select all of the trainings that the individual staff member has completed or was current on during 24-25. You can select none of the above or any of these 3. Just note that if you do select none of the above, you will no longer be able to click on these other buttons. So if you mistakenly select this button, just go ahead and click it again and be able to select the correct training. So for this example, we'll go ahead and select the training, click next, and you will see a response summary just on the staff training section here. If you could go ahead and just read through, confirm that all of the names are correct, confirm that all of the trainings are correct, and if you do catch an error, you can use this back button to go back and correct it. But once you hit the next button here, you will proceed to the next section of the survey, and you will no longer be able to access this information.
Amanda, I'm going to jump in really quick and let folks know we're getting a lot of questions in the Q&A about seeing the right screen. If you click on the tab at the top of your screen that says Amanda, you should be able to see the demo. So I wanted to say that out loud. I know we're getting lots of Q&A. We've put that instruction into the chat for folks as well, and hopefully that corrects the issue. Sorry to interrupt, Amanda. Thank you.
Okay, so just want to confirm, is everybody seeing part 2 employment at this point? Okay, perfect. So this is the second section of the survey. And in this section, you will be reporting on employment outcomes for individuals served between July 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2025. This part of the survey will be pre-populated with UCIs based on POS authorizations for FY 2024-25. So you will only be asked to report data on individuals who we see POS authorizations for during that time. This question asks you to report on any newly started positions held by these individuals beginning on July 1st, 2024 and ending on June 30th, 2025. So if you go ahead and select group employment, you will see another question will pop up asking if John Smith transitioned to this group employment position from any of these types of positions and or activities. The same will happen if you click on individuals.
Sorry, Amanda, could you repeat the last thing you said? If John Smith transitioned to, some of that got lost in the sign language interpretation.
So sorry. If you click on the group supported employment or the individual supported employment options, a second question will pop up asking whether the individual transitioned to this position from any of these types of activities, or to put it a different way, if right before starting the group employment or the individual employment, if they held any of these types of positions. The aim of this question is to have a better understanding of the pipeline that leads to these types of positions. So for the sakes of this example, we'll say John Smith had a paid internship and Joan Smith went to a day program. I want you to notice that the next button is currently still grayed out, and that's because not all of the questions on the page have been responded to. So until you go ahead and respond to all the questions, you won't be able to proceed to the next page. So if you see that, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means there might be a question on the page that got missed. After you go through and confirm that all of your information looks correct, you can click the next button. On this next screen, you will see again the same names that you saw on the previous screen. This question is asking for the total number of jobs held by each of these individuals. This is regardless of whether they were in FY 24-25 or whether you provided the services that led to this job. We are just trying to get a sense of the total number of positions that each of these individuals held. If you do not know how many jobs each individual held, you can go ahead and just enter 999. And this will signify to us that the number is unknown. For the purposes of this example, we'll just say John Smith had 1 or 2 and everybody else held 1 job. Once you respond to this question, a second question will open up on the screen. And this will ask you whether you have a start date to report for each individual's most recent or current job. I want to note here that if you do enter a 0, you won't be asked for a start date for an individual. Once you see this window, you can go ahead and indicate whether or not you have a start date. We'll say we have 3 start dates and then our last person is missing 1. For the individuals for whom you say you have a start date to report, another question will appear. And this is where you can enter your start date. You can either use the date picker to enter this information, or you can type it straight into the text entry box. So I'm just going to put some random dates in here. Let's say, okay. So our dates are in. Now we can move to the next question. This question asks whether you have an end date to report for any of these individuals. The purpose of these questions is to kind of start to get a sense of how long each individual is staying in their position. So that's why we're asking for these dates. You can indicate that you do have a date, you don't have a date, or that the individual is still at this job. So we'll go ahead and indicate, let's say that John Smith is still at his job, Joan Smith has an end date, and Jim Doe does not. For the individual for whom we indicated that we do have an end date to report, the final question will pop up asking for you to enter that end date. And again, you can use the date picker, or you can just go ahead and type it in. After you've entered all your data, just make sure to go through, confirm that everything looks right to you, and if it does, you can proceed to the following screen. And this will be where you can see the response summary for your employment outcome questions. It's formatted so that each person's responses will be in one little box, so you can confirm everybody at once. If you go through, just make sure that everything looks right to you. If it doesn't look right to you, you can hit the back button to go back and correct it, but please note that this is your last opportunity to do so. Once you click the next button here, you will be submitting your responses. You will no longer be able to go back and change your responses. So we're confirmed everything looks right, and we can hit our next button. At this point, we are submitting our survey, but the last thing we have to do is make sure to read the certification statement, which says that this information is accurate to the best of your knowledge. Once you hit I agree and hit the next button, you have successfully submitted your survey.
Amazing. Thank you, Amanda, for that very thorough walkthrough. We hope you all found that very helpful. We're going to talk a little bit more about eligibility and how program rates are going to be determined. So next slide. So along with completing this survey, service providers must be compliant with state standards for vendorization prior to receiving their full QIP rate. It's also required that all service providers must be validated in the provider directory by October 30th. If you are not, you will not be sent the opportunity to complete the QIP surveys and will not get your full rate beginning July 1st, 2026. This is how we are going to send you those direct links I mentioned earlier. So it's really important that you have updated emails in the provider directory. So in addition to that provider directory requirement, if your service requires you to be using electronic visit verification, or EVV, it is required that you are registered in the Cal EVV or approved alternate EVV platform, or that you have an exemption from your regional center as to why it is you don't have to be doing EVV. If your service requires you to be compliant with the HCBS settings final rule, that you've had a review from your regional center and have been determined to have met initial compliance. And if you are required to have an independent audit based on how much you earn, you will need to have had that annual audit completed in order to be eligible for your full QIP rate. For more information on these eligibility requirements, we will put the link to those directives explaining more about that in the chat for you. This directive has links to web pages and citations about each requirement with more information about what's required of you to be determined compliant within these areas. Next slide. Okay, so once surveys have been completed and the department has confirmed compliance with the areas that we just reviewed, DDS will calculate the provider's rate and send that to the regional centers to implement those rates beginning July 1st, 2026. I want to emphasize again that the goal here is data collection. If you are compliant with existing standards and you complete your applicable surveys, you will earn your full QIP rate. Next slide. Okay, so we have reviewed a lot of information with you in a short amount of time. For each QIP measure, our team has developed and will be very soon posting online resources aimed to help you better understand what is needed to get your QIP rate and walk you through the survey and data collection process. So these webinar series, these are really a pre-survey effort that we're making to make sure folks get a preview of the survey, they understand what's required, and then we will be posting all of this information online for you to access when the surveys go live. So we have fact sheets. This is essentially a differently laid out version of the directive. It has everything you need to know from the directive, plus a few connecting resources or information as well, kind of where to find more information. We have FAQs for each measure, polling questions that we've received through our public inbox, as well as during past meetings with the community. We'll also add questions that we receive from this training and update the FAQ online so that that is relevant for you all as well. We have worksheets that help you as a provider gear up to input data into the survey platform. So as a provider, you're still going to have to one by one fill out those details using your unique survey link, but you can download a worksheet to fill out and help you gather all of the information that you need into one place and then be able to more seamlessly input that information into the survey platform itself. We also have, again, we've had trainings on each topic, which are being recorded, and we will post those online, along with a shorter recording of the walkthrough of the survey, as Amanda demonstrated for you. So if you're in need of just a quick, 5-10 minute video, you don't want to sit through our hour-and-a-half training here, that recording will be available for you as well. Along with that recorded walkthrough, we have user guides, which will step-by-step walk you through the process of data collection and include screenshots of the survey platform. We really encourage you to have this up as you go through the survey. Everything that will be asked of you in the survey is listed in the user guide, along with within those worksheets. I mentioned earlier that some providers, of course, like our employment and residential providers, will be asked to complete 2 surveys. And again, you will get an email for each survey. But you can also check in advance which surveys you will be asked to complete on our website as a part of a recent directive we sent to regional centers. And I put that into the chat for you all. I'm going to put it in there again. If we have time after we answer some questions, I'm happy to pull up that link to review with you all as well. So we hope that with all of these resources, it will be very easy for you to complete these surveys and earn your QIP rate. Next slide. Okay, I think we're going to do some live questions. I know we have some in the chat right now. I'm going to filter the Q&A by most upvotes. So we've been getting a lot of similar questions into the Q&A, which makes a lot of good sense. If you see a question in there that you also would like to hear the answer to, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up. There's a little thumbs up icon that you can upvote that question, and we'll make sure to tackle it in our time today. And I think we're going to have several folks answering Q&A. So anyone from DDS, please feel welcome to jump in. The first question here is there a published list of QIP benchmarks that providers will have to meet in a given year?
Hi, Susie, I can take this one. Hi, everyone. Josh Sidarma here, manager in the Office of Quality Assurance. And just to answer the question, there are not benchmarks at this point. So kind of to what Susie mentioned early in the presentation, really the only requirement for providers to earn their QIP rate is to do the reporting. We are not asking you to meet a specific number or goal. Just by virtue of reporting completely and accurately in the survey, you earn your rate. So there is no specific benchmarks, but once we reach that point in the development of the QIP, we will make sure that we publicize that information very clearly and early and often. But we are definitely not there yet. And so we're really asking for your participation in reporting. And for that, you will earn your QIP rate for fiscal year 26-27.
Okay, next question. We submitted information for the provider directory and need assistance to make sure we are correctly listed, but keep getting messages that they are working on it. How can we get some answers?
For that one, if you're not already in contact with the provider directory team, I can drop in the chat or respond to your question with the provider directory email, and the support team can give you assistance to address whatever challenges that you're having there.
Thank you, Erin. Erin, you might stay on because this next question might be for you too. For the audits, if we were on our 2-year exemption for that time period, will that be taken into consideration?
So for the audit, the independent audit or review requirement, what we are doing is we're picking a point in time, which will be February 27th of 26, to verify that the vendor numbers that have that requirement have met their obligations pursuant to the statute. There's a reason for that. We pushed out the directives in a few weeks ago, and we want to give providers time to come into compliance. But what we are checking for is that you are current on them, not that you've done future ones that aren't due yet or anything like that. We're checking to see if you're current. That also includes if you were granted the exemption that is allowable under the statute as well. So if you did your audit and it was found with an unmodified opinion and the regional center granted you the 2-year extension, that means you're current and you're compliant with the statutory requirements and therefore would be eligible for QIP. This question has come up on, what if mine's not due until March and that's after the deadline? Then it's not due, and as long as you did your previous one, you are deemed compliant with the statute. So hopefully that helps to clarify it. In the directive, we did kind of talk about what a review is and what an independent audit is, and pointed back to the statutory requirements for reference. So hopefully that provides some clarity on that particular issue.
I'm also seeing there's actually several questions related to whether the independent audit or the audit that we're referencing is related to HCBS internal audit. So I can take that one and clarify that, Erin just spoke to the independent audit requirement, and that's specific to if you earn over a certain threshold, then you're required to complete an independent audit that is separate from any HCBS auditing. Monitoring, I think, is more the word that we like to use. But your regional center will be, they should have already come out to your setting if you are required to be compliant with the HCBS settings final rule. The regional center has visited you, they've completed a review. If there was anything that you needed to change or in the way that you provide services or what you provide to the individuals that you support to be compliant, you probably worked through a remediation plan or a corrective action plan and have been found to be compliant. So that is the initial compliant this year. There will be ongoing requirements for that compliance. That's not a one-time compliance issue. So we will be working through that over the coming years as well. But they are two separate things, independent audit and HCBS compliance. I forgot to hit answer live, so I'm going to do that. Yes. If EVV requirement doesn't apply to us, do we still need to get the EVV exemption? And the answer to that is no. If you are not required to be doing EVV, don't worry about that EVV requirement. Another question, how do we know everything required was correctly applied and verified that we will receive our full rate? Josh, do you want to take that one?
Sure. So, and I think this is a good question because the QIP, the Quality Incentive Program, essentially what we will be doing related to the three sort of eligible, I guess, requirements that you need to do in order to participate in the QIP. So those three requirements, one of which is the independent audits or reviews, and the second one, which is HCBS, and the third, which is EVV. What we will be doing in the QIP is checking with those three programs to find out which providers are in compliance. However, in terms of checking to see whether or not you as a provider are compliant or you have done the registration required, we encourage you to check with your regional center. Your regional center is the one who will have the information and manages your vendorization, so they would be your primary point of contact for that. On our side, we're not managing it, but we are checking on that compliance at the end of February 2026.
There's a question about where can I find the worksheet on the website, which I can take. You won't find it just yet on the website. It is not posted yet. We hope to do that within the next few days. But I think we can put, again, the link to the website where it will be posted into the chat. And we'll include those resources. We'll make sure folks have those resources. Yeah, that will be a really helpful tool. So we want to make sure that you have that.
I think one of the other things we might be able to do is now that, and again, I think one of the benefits of the provider directory is that we now have the contact information for all registered providers. And so what that means is that we now have a way to keep you all updated as we have more information or as we have relevant and timely information about the QIP. We have a way to reach you. And just like we did for these trainings, we can continue to do that as we have more to share.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, will this affect service code 956 as well? And I'm looking at I'm going to put this into the chat again for you all. But this is our service code list. And 956 is not present. So Gonna go with no. Someone can jump in if I'm wrong, but I think that's the answer.
And just to add to that, so those who are able to, if you can go into the chat, you'll find a link to a crosswalk or a table of all of the service codes that should be participating in the QIP or are eligible to participate in the QIP. That table should make it very clear about which of the surveys you should take or can take. So there are 3 as part of the QIP this year. One is the one that we just went over, which is the employment survey. We also have one specific for residential providers. That's the prevention and wellness survey. And that training is coming up next week. And then we also have the provider capacity survey. So there are 3 different surveys for the QIP. If you are a residential provider, you'll be taking 2. If you're an employment provider, you will be taking 2. And if you are any of the other providers or a provider operating in any of the other service codes that don't do those 2, then you would just do the 1 provider capacity survey. But the table, if you can click on that and open that up, that'll make it very clear about which service codes apply to which surveys.
Josh. Okay. If a vendor is a courtesy vendor, will they receive 2 surveys, 1 for each regional center, or just 1 for the vendor number?
I can take this one. Shirley here. 1 survey will be sent out per vendor number. So it's okay if you're a courtesy vendor with a different regional center, but you'll be provided 1 survey link to report on all clients under that vendor number.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay. Another service code question. Is this survey required only for service codes 950 and 951? Although I think that was, oops. Sorry, my chat updated. 950 and 951, and not service code 915, as many of us are. And 950, yes. Service code 915 is residential facility. And so this employment survey is not going to be required for 915, but it will, the residential survey will be required. As Josh just mentioned, there is 2 surveys if you are a residential provider, 2 surveys if you are an employment provider, and 1 survey for all of the other service providers in that chart that we have linked for you. Okay, another question. If staff job development for both 950 and 952 services, would we include them in both? Also, what do we do about staff who support development of job sites, but it's not their entire job? For example, a program manager for group supported employment. I think, Shirley, I might ping you for that.
I can take this one. Yeah, I can take this one. So when you receive your survey link to report on staff who have completed either ACRE or CSP training, you'll be reporting it for the entire vendor number. And so it won't be distinguished between which staff were working under 950 or which staff working under 952, but rather all staff under that vendor number. There will be a space for you to report on all the staff. For the second part of the question about staff who do multiple things and if job development is not their entire job, yes, please include them if they obtained ACRE or CSP training.
Thank you, Shirley. Okay, if there was a partial compliance on the HCBS review, does that mean a provider is not in compliance and won't be eligible for the QIP? We haven't received the results from our July review. And I can answer that one. No, if there's partial compliance and you've worked through that, you should still be fine to be eligible for the QIP. The HCBS requirement this year is based on initial compliance determination, and that was all done actually before July. So if you received a review from your regional center in July, and you might still be working through some of those things, we have accounted you initially compliant when we did that initial compliance review. And so you will be eligible for the QIP. That. Okay. Next question. What is meant by, and this is a quote from statute, this requirement does not apply to payments made using usual and customary rates for services provided by regional centers? And okay, I was gonna say, Josh, I don't know if you want to take this one or I can take a stab at it as well.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the usual and customary, my understanding is that that is typically for a setting that is not just providing services to regional center individuals, receiving services from the regional center. And so this QIP requirement, this is for service providers only providing services to those served by the regional center. And I feel that there's probably a better way to say that. I'm racking my brain for a better way. I don't know, Josh or Aaron, if you want to jump in.
For service providers that are considered usual and customary, there's certain thresholds that have to be met for the regs. If your rate is established by usual and customary, you are not a part of rate reform and therefore not eligible to participate in the quality incentive program.
There it is. That was the better way to say it. Thank you. Okay. I see we've got some folks getting answers to questions, so I'm going to skip those if someone's typing an answer and move to the next one. I received an email stating I didn't complete the enrollment to be on the directory and will lose 10% of our pay. I checked the directory and I was listed on there. Who can I speak to who can explain to me where I might have gone wrong?
If you want to email the provider directory email, we can verify what happened there with the load.
We can get that into the chat for you guys as well. Okay, what if our service code, which is 102, and primary subcode, which is tailored day services, is not listed in the crosswalk? Are we not eligible for any QIP?
Sure, I can take this one. So rate reform did not include every single service code. There are some which were excluded, and some of those are included in what Aaron mentioned in usual and customary rates. So the best way to think about this is if you are not in rate reform, you are not asked or required to do anything in terms of the QIP. That may change in the future, but as of today, that is not the case. And so you do not need to worry about reporting during this data collection survey cycle.
We are vendorized for 952 with Regional Center in March of 2025, but we haven't started any services yet. Are we required to complete the employment survey for this vendor number?
I can take this one. For this employment survey, you will not need to complete a survey. You will get more information on, because you're a new provider, you will get more information soon on a different survey to complete.
Really?
And just to also further elaborate, as we also mentioned earlier on in the presentation, survey links will be emailed to providers. And so based off of your contact information, meaning your email address that you registered in the provider directory, we'll be sending those email survey links to you. So you don't need to go looking for it. It'll automatically arrive in your email box, and it'll look like the one that you saw on the screen that Amanda shared earlier.
We acquired an employment program from another agency after June 30th, 2025. They were all working in fiscal year 2025. Do we need to add those new clients into our present survey?
Since the program was switched over after June 30, 2025, it will not need to be included in reporting because the reporting for this employment survey is still only focused on services that were rendered during fiscal year 24 through 25.
Really. I think there's one question left, which is just about the recording. I will put again into the chat our QIP webpage where these will be recorded and posted, or sorry, where the recordings will be posted.
And also just to let folks know, we are recording all of these training sessions. However, in addition to recording these training sessions and posting them online, we are also creating user guides, which walk through just the survey portion. And so you don't have to view the entire meeting in order to find out what do you need to do to enter your information or submit your data. And then we also have some videos, which we will be posting, that do something similar to the user guide. So you can look at one or both or watch the video, and both of those will be much shorter versions of how to enter your information than this entire meeting recording. But you are certainly welcome to watch this meeting recording, which we'll post next week on the website as well, in case you want to review this Q&A portion, or if you want to see some of the context that we went over during the presentation. So you'll have both options, and we will be, as Susie mentioned, also releasing more supporting material, and we can communicate to all service providers once we have all of those live and up on the web for you to access.
Thank you, guys. I'm putting into the chat here a link to our compliance and eligibility directive, only because it pertains to this next question, which is that I have two facilities and my annual income for both is below 500,000. Do I have to hire an independent CPA? What should I do?
So the independent audit or review thresholds are established by the state fiscal year. So it's revenues based on from July 1 through June 30th. So just want to clarify that. So you need to look at your entire revenues for your organization, not by vendor number, but combined. And that list is generated from the POS data that we pull and push down to the regional centers. And then the regional centers would have information on who needs a review and who needs an audit. So if there's questions about whether or not you meet that threshold, or whether or not you require a review or audit, you would need to verify that with your vendoring regional center.
And yeah, we've got more questions about independent audit. I think Erin just gave a lot of good information, and in our chat, we have the link to where you can find out more information about the independent audit and review requirement. So please reference that link. Okay. I see you mentioned more information will be available soon for new vendors vendored after June 30th of 2025. Does this mean I will not be needing to complete any surveys at this time? I believe that the provider capacity survey will be released starting November 3rd of this year. That's a great question. That's correct. If you were vendored after June 30th of 2025, the surveys that we're talking about in these webinars do not apply to you. We will be issuing a new provider survey that we've talked about a little bit today. So please be on the lookout for that. So there will be a survey that we're asking you to complete. It just will not be this employment survey or the the prevention and wellness survey. Okay. If a vendor doesn't check mark all boxes in the survey about trainings for employees, will the vendor get 100% of their rate? Shirley, I see you're already typing an answer to that, so I'm going to ask you to say that out loud.
Yeah, totally fine. The surveys this year are all about reporting. There are no performance type of metrics in the surveys. And so participation by participating in the survey means simply reporting the information that you have. And that is what will be factoring into earning the QIP portion of your rate.
Thank you. Okay. This is one we saw a few times. I was not admitted last Wednesday due to the Zoom was full. So my option is to go to the website for QIP to find the recording. The answer is yes. We will be posting that recording onto the QIP webpage. We're also very likely going to be doing another webinar series once the survey links are live. We want to make sure that folks have all the information that they need to complete these surveys and get their rate. And so if that is an interest, we are more than happy to do that. But yes, the recordings will be on the website. Thank you.
And Susie, I clicked on the one that's there, so I'll answer this one. Are there any one-time QIPs? So there are, and I will post the link to the directive that was released on October 9th, and that is for residential providers. So there are some one-time incentives, meaning that similar to the way that the QIP has run in the past couple of years, providers who are operating in these services will be able to take part in the QIP, but instead of earning a portion of their rate, will earn a lump sum incentive for doing that. Those three residential types are RCFEs, in other words, residential care facilities for the elderly, under service code 096 and 114, enhanced behavioral support homes, or EBSHs, and then finally group homes for children with special health care needs. So all three of those types of homes can participate in the residential focused QIP, prevention and wellness. And I will post the link to that directive, which has all that information in the chat now. We will be having a training specifically on that reporting measure next week. And I'll also post the link to where you can register for that training. So please look in the chat in just a moment.
Thank you, Josh. There's a question about whether I need to attend the webinar on October 29th, since I'm not a residential facility, but I'm ILS. That's correct. It might be helpful to get information, but you don't need to attend the October 29th webinar because you will not be, as an ILS provider, required to do the residential survey at this time. So look for the provider capacity training link online when that gets posted. I see another question about whether a corrective action plan impacts a provider from participating and receiving their QIP. Josh, I'm gonna ping you for that one.
No, I don't believe so. So corrective action plan does not preclude or exclude, I should say, a provider from participating in the QIP. If you are working on correcting, then that does not exclude you from the QIP.
Thanks. Some service code questions. Let me pull that up for myself. Okay. What webinar should I attend if my service code is 915? We had service code 915 is required to complete 2 surveys. So that is the provider capacity survey. We held that webinar training on Wednesday. Again, links will get posted to the QIP webpage. But then next week on Wednesday, the 29th, we have the prevention and wellness survey walkthrough. And that is applicable for residential service providers. So if you'd like to know more about that survey, please register for that. And actually I'm going to put that into the chat as well, a link to that registration. So you all can register for that who need to.
Susie, if you don't mind, I'd like to, while you're dropping that link in the chat, take a question. There's one last question here about newly vendored providers. So providers who were vendored after July of 2025. It's come up a few times in the chat, so figured I'd just clarify kind of where things stand with that. Right now, the current process for attaining your QIP for the remainder of this fiscal year, so through June 30th of 2026, the only measure is the registration and validation of data into the provider directory. So that was our first measure that we launched last year to earn your QIP rate from January 1 of 25 through June 30th of 26. So any provider that's been vendored in between that time, the only requirement that you have to attain your QIP portion of your rate is to register and validate in the provider directory. Now, we will be putting out a separate directive with instructions on how to earn your rate for July 1, 2026 through June 30th of 2027, which is still forthcoming, but there will be a separate directive that will outline the process to earn your rate for that time period. The rationale behind that is that for this data collection efforts, we are looking at least 12 months of service delivery to be able to get good data and understand, how services are being delivered and what types of information we can collect from that. So if you've recently been vendored, meaning after July 1 of 2025, you won't have enough time period of delivering services for us to get a good snapshot of the type of data that we're trying to collect. So there'll be a separate independent measure just for those providers. And again, that directive has not come out yet. We will be releasing that in very shortly here.
Thank you, Erin. Okay, I don't see any more questions. If we can advance to the next slide. So you guys have this information here. This is our QIP inbox. I do see some more questions coming in. We can take those. But this is any questions that you have, you can always feel free to reach out to our public inbox. That's qipquestions@dds.ca.gov. And again, we will be taking questions that we've gotten today, and we will update our FAQs to make sure that you can access these answers there as well. There's an ask of someone who's requesting if we can put something together to show the fiscal year requirements. And I think that's a fantastic idea. And yeah, we'd absolutely be able to do that, make that a resource for folks. That's a great idea. Thank you. Let's see, in the registration screen, what is the employment workgroup meeting? Is that needed for ICFDD?
I think I can take this, Susie. I think this question is referring to the stakeholder events page. And that, for those of you that have not used it before, that actually is all public meetings hosted by the department. So what you'll find on there is both meetings for the QIP as well as meetings for other programs in the department. So the employment workgroup meeting is led by the work services or employment unit here at the department. It is not a part of the QIP. So it is your choice to attend. But it does not have any bearing on this program here on the QIP.
Don't have any open questions. I think, again, we will make sure that we update our FAQs with all of the great questions we've received today. We really appreciate your time and joining us today. Hope that you learned a little bit more about what's required, and we look forward to seeing you at the next. Thank you all so much.